A massive alien vessel, sleek and metallic, entered Earth's orbit unnoticed by human radar systems. The ship was unlike anything humanity had ever seen, its surface shimmering with an otherworldly glow as it hovered silently above the planet. Inside, a crew of extraterrestrial beings moved about their duties with precision. Their leader, Zorak, stood tall in the command center, his sharp features illuminated by the soft blue light of holographic displays. He turned to two scientists, Kale and Nira, who were waiting for instructions. "Earth," Zorak said, his voice calm but firm. "It is time to begin our study of this planet's deadliest creatures." His eyes narrowed slightly as he added, "We must understand what makes them so dangerous and how they survive in such a chaotic environment." Kale nodded eagerly, his curiosity evident in the way his antennae twitched. Nira, on the other hand, seemed more cautious, her slender fingers tapping lightly against the edge of her datapad. Both were eager to explore, though for different reasons. While Kale relished the thrill of discovery, Nira worried about the risks involved in studying unknown life forms. Still, she followed orders without hesitation, knowing the importance of their mission. Meanwhile, thousands of miles below, in a quiet American town surrounded by dense forests, Sarah Dawson walked her dog along a narrow dirt path. It was late at night, and the air was cool, carrying the faint scent of pine. Stars dotted the sky, casting a dim glow over the landscape. As she strolled, Sarah noticed something unusual, a cluster of bright lights hovering above the trees. At first, she thought it might be an airplane or a weather balloon, but these lights were too steady, too deliberate in their movements. She stopped walking and squinted, trying to make sense of what she was seeing. Her dog, Max, growled softly, tugging at his leash, as if sensing something unnatural. "What is that?" Sarah whispered to herself, her heart beginning to race. She reached for her phone, snapping a quick photo before the lights suddenly vanished, leaving only darkness behind. Back aboard the alien ship, Kale and Nira prepared for their descent to Earth. They donned devices that would allow them to blend in with humans, disguising their true forms under layers of advanced holographic projections. Once ready, they stepped into a transport pod and descended toward the planet's surface. Their destination: a remote forest teeming with life. As they landed softly among the trees, Kale took a deep breath, marveling at the rich variety of scents and sounds around him. Birds chirped in the distance, insects buzzed nearby, and the wind rustled through the leaves overhead. "This place is incredible," he said, grinning at Nira. "So much energy, so much life." Nira scanned their surroundings with a handheld scanner, analyzing the area for potential threats. "Yes, but also unpredictable," she replied, her tone measured. "We need to stay focused. Remember why we're here." Unbeknownst to them, Sarah Dawson wasn't the only one who had noticed strange activity that night. Reports of unidentified flying objects began surfacing across the globe, sparking both fear and fascination. In Washington, D.C., government agent Ryan Carter sat at his desk, sipping coffee while reviewing satellite footage. At first glance, the images appeared ordinary, just clouds and empty skies. But then he spotted something odd near Yellowstone National Park, a shadowy shape, moving too fast to be natural. Ryan leaned forward, his brow furrowed. "What the hell is that?" he muttered, replaying the footage several times. Whatever it was, it didn't match any known aircraft or technology. He knew he couldn't ignore it. Grabbing his jacket, he headed out the door, determined to get answers, even if it meant stepping into uncharted territory. The next morning, news of strange sightings spread like wildfire. Social media platforms were flooded with blurry photos and shaky videos of glowing lights in the sky. Some people claimed to have seen objects darting between clouds at impossible speeds, while others swore they heard strange humming noises coming from nowhere. In small towns and big cities alike, conversations buzzed with speculation about what, or who, was behind these mysterious events. In Washington, D.C., Ryan Carter arrived at his office early, already buried under a mountain of reports. His desk was cluttered with printouts of satellite images, witness accounts, and classified memos. He rubbed his temples, trying to make sense of it all. Most of the reports could easily be dismissed as hoaxes or misidentified phenomena, but something about the patterns bothered him. The timing, the locations, it didn't feel random. "Ryan," called out a voice from the doorway. It was Emily Ross, a young field agent recently assigned to his team. She held a folder in one hand and looked both nervous and excited. "I think you should see this." Emily stepped closer and placed the folder on his desk. Inside were detailed notes from local farmers near Yellowstone National Park. They described unusual activity over the past few days. Livestock disappearing without explanation, strange burn marks found in fields, and eerie silence, where animals usually roamed freely. One farmer even mentioned seeing two figures dressed in odd clothing wandering through the woods late at night. "This is interesting," Ryan said slowly, flipping through the pages. "But it's not enough to go on. We need hard evidence. That's why I volunteered for the fieldwork," Emily replied quickly. "If there's anything out there, I want to find it." Ryan studied her for a moment. Emily was smart, eager, and had a knack for noticing details others overlooked. Still, sending her into potentially dangerous territory made him uneasy. After a pause, he nodded. "Fine, but you're not going alone. Take a team with you, and keep me updated every step of the way." Meanwhile, deep in the Montana wilderness, Cale and Nira continued their exploration. The forest was alive with sounds. Birds chirping, leaves rustling, and distant streams babbling softly. Keela knelt beside a fallen log, examining a cluster of mushrooms growing in its shadow. "Fascinating," he murmured, running a scanner over them. "These organisms are far more complex than they appear." Nira stood nearby, keeping watch. Her scanner beeped softly as it detected movement nearby. "Cale," she warned, her voice low. "We're not alone." Before he could respond, a rattlesnake slithered into view, coiled tightly and ready to strike. Its rattle buzzed loudly, warning them to stay back. Cale froze, mesmerized by the creature's sleek scales and sharp fangs. "It's beautiful," he whispered, reaching out instinctively to get a closer look. "Don't move," Nira hissed, grabbing his arm. "It's dangerous." Her warning came too late. The snake lunged forward, its fangs grazing Nira's leg just before she jumped back. Pain shot through her limb, but she managed to activate a device on her wrist that emitted a high-pitched sound. The snake recoiled, retreating into the underbrush. Cale rushed to her side, concern etched across his face. "Are you okay? Did it bite you?" "It's fine," Nira snapped, though her breathing was heavy. "Just a scratch. Let's focus on why we're here." As they tended to her wound, neither noticed the figure watching them from a distance. Hidden behind a tree, Sarah Dawson peered cautiously at the two strangers. She had followed the strange lights again last night and stumbled upon them earlier that morning. Something about their appearance struck her as odd. Their clothes seemed too perfect, their movements too deliberate. And now, after witnessing the snake attack, she couldn't shake the feeling that they weren't human. Sarah hesitated, unsure whether to approach or run. Before she could decide, Cale and Nira packed up their equipment and moved deeper into the forest, leaving her alone with her thoughts. Her heart pounded as she realized she might have uncovered something extraordinary and terrifying. Cale and Nira ventured deeper into the forest, their steps cautious but determined. The encounter with the rattlesnake had left them shaken, though Nira tried to downplay her injury. Her leg throbbed slightly, but she refused to let it slow her down. "We need to be more careful," she said sharply, glancing around at the dense undergrowth. "This planet's creatures are not as simple as they seem." Cale nodded, his earlier excitement tempered by a newfound respect for Earth's wildlife. "Agreed. But that's exactly why we're here, to understand them." He adjusted the settings on his scanner, which emitted soft beeping noises as it analyzed the environment. "Look at this," he added, pointing to a swarm of insects buzzing near a rotting log. "Even these tiny creatures have complex behaviors." Nira sighed, torn between fascination and caution. She knelt beside him, watching as fire ants crawled over the decaying wood, dismantling a dead beetle with remarkable efficiency. "They're organized," she admitted, her tone softer now. "Almost like soldiers." As they studied the ants, neither noticed Sarah Dawson trailing them from a safe distance. She had decided to follow them after the snake incident, driven by curiosity and a growing sense of unease. Something about these two strangers didn't add up. Their clothes looked too clean, their movements too deliberate. And then there was the strange device Cale held, a gadget that hummed faintly and glowed with an otherworldly light. Sarah crouched behind a bush, peering through the leaves as Cale picked up a fallen ant with a pair of tweezers. He placed it carefully inside a small container, muttering something about biochemical analysis. Nira, meanwhile, scanned the area again, her sharp eyes darting back and forth. For a moment, Sarah thought she saw a flicker of light around Nira's hand, but when she blinked, it was gone. Back in Washington, D.C., Emily Ross led her team toward Yellowstone National Park. The drive was long and quiet, broken only by occasional updates from Ryan Carter over the radio. "Remember," he reminded them, "this could just be a wild goose chase. Stay alert, but don't jump to conclusions." Emily nodded, though she wasn't convinced it was a waste of time. The farmers' reports had been too specific, too consistent, to dismiss outright. As they approached the park, the landscape shifted dramatically. Rolling hills gave way to jagged cliffs, and thick forests stretched endlessly in every direction. It was beautiful, but also intimidating. When they arrived at the site of the reported disturbances, the team split up to cover more ground. Emily wandered toward a clearing where one farmer claimed to have seen strange figures. The grass was trampled, and patches of dirt were scorched black, as if burned by intense heat. She knelt down, running her fingers over the charred earth. What could have done this? She murmured to herself. Her question went unanswered, but as she stood up, she noticed something glinting in the sunlight. It was a small, metallic object half buried in the soil. Picking it up, she examined it closely. It was smooth and cool to the touch, unlike anything she'd ever seen before. A faint symbol etched onto its surface caught her eye, but she couldn't decipher its meaning. At the same time, Cale and Nira stumbled upon another startling discovery. Deep in the woods, they found a massive anthill surrounded by the remains of larger animals, mice, birds, even a small snake. The ants swarmed aggressively, attacking anything that came too close. Cale marveled at their ferocity, while Nira grew increasingly uneasy. "These creatures are relentless," she said, taking a step back. "Imagine what they could do if provoked." Her words sent a chill through Cale. He glanced around, suddenly aware of how vulnerable they were in this alien environment. "Let's collect our samples and head back," he suggested. "We've seen enough for today." But as they turned to leave, a low growl echoed through the trees. Both froze, their scanners lighting up with warnings. From the shadows emerged a large bear, its eyes gleaming with hunger and hostility. Trapped between the bear and the aggressive ants, Cale and Nira realized they were in serious trouble. Unbeknownst to them, Sarah Dawson still watched from afar, her heart pounding as she witnessed the unfolding scene. Whatever these strangers were, they clearly weren't prepared for everything Earth had to throw at them. Cale and Nira ventured deeper into the forest, their steps cautious but determined. The encounter with the rattlesnake had left them shaken, though Nira tried to downplay her injury. Her leg throbbed slightly, but she refused to let it slow her down. "We need to be more careful," she said sharply, glancing around at the dense undergrowth. "This planet's creatures are not as simple as they seem." Cale nodded, his earlier excitement tempered by a newfound respect for Earth's wildlife. "Agreed. But that's exactly why we're here, to understand them." He adjusted the settings on his scanner, which emitted soft beeping noises as it analyzed the environment. "Look at this," he added, pointing to a swarm of insects buzzing near a rotting log. Even these tiny creatures have complex behaviors. Nira sighed, torn between fascination and caution. She knelt beside him, watching as fire ants crawled over the decaying wood, dismantling a dead beetle with remarkable efficiency. "They're organized," she admitted, her tone softer now. "Almost like soldiers." As they studied the ants, neither noticed Sarah Dawson trailing them from a safe distance. She had decided to follow them after the snake incident, driven by curiosity and a growing sense of unease. Something about these two strangers didn't add up. Their clothes looked too clean, their movements too deliberate. And then there was the strange device Cal held, a gadget that hummed faintly and glowed with an otherworldly light. Sarah crouched behind a bush, peering through the leaves as Cal picked up a fallen ant with a pair of tweezers. He placed it carefully inside a small container, muttering something about biochemical analysis. Nira, meanwhile, scanned the area again, her sharp eyes darting back and forth. For a moment, Sarah thought she saw a flicker of light around Nira's hand, but when she blinked, it was gone. Back in Washington, D.C., Emily Ross led her team toward Yellowstone National Park. The drive was long and quiet, broken only by occasional updates from Ryan Carter over the radio. "Remember," he reminded them, "this could just be a wild goose chase. Stay alert, but don't jump to conclusions." Emily nodded, though she wasn't convinced it was a waste of time. The farmers' reports had been too specific, too consistent, to dismiss outright. As they approached the park, the landscape shifted dramatically. Rolling hills gave way to jagged cliffs, and thick forests stretched endlessly in every direction. It was beautiful, but also intimidating. When they arrived at the site of the reported disturbances, the team split up to cover more ground. Emily wandered toward a clearing where one farmer claimed to have seen strange figures. The grass was trampled, and patches of dirt were scorched black, as if burned by intense heat. She knelt down, running her fingers over the charred earth. What could have done this? She murmured to herself. Her question went unanswered, but as she stood up, she noticed something glinting in the sunlight. It was a small metallic object half buried in the soil. Picking it up, she examined it closely. It was smooth and cool to the touch, unlike anything she'd ever seen before. A faint symbol etched onto its surface caught her eye, but she couldn't decipher its meaning. At the same time, Cale and Nira stumbled upon another startling discovery. Deep in the woods, they found a massive anthill surrounded by the remains of larger animals. Mice, birds, even a small snake. The ants swarmed aggressively, attacking anything that came too close. Cale marveled at their ferocity, while Nira grew increasingly uneasy. "These creatures are relentless," she said, taking a step back. "Imagine what they could do if provoked." Her words sent a chill through Cale. He glanced around, suddenly aware of how vulnerable they were in this alien environment. "Let's collect our samples and head back," he suggested. "We've seen enough for today." But as they turned to leave, a low growl echoed through the trees. Both froze, their scanners lighting up with warnings. From the shadows emerged a large bear, its eyes gleaming with hunger and hostility. Trapped between the bear and the aggressive ants, Cale and Nira realized they were in serious trouble. Unbeknownst to them, Sarah Dawson still watched from afar, her heart pounding as she witnessed the unfolding scene. Whatever these strangers were, they clearly weren't prepared for everything Earth had to throw at them. The bear moved closer, its massive body brushing against the trees as it advanced. Cale and Nira stood frozen for a moment, their scanners beeping wildly. The ants behind them swarmed in chaotic patterns, sensing the tension in the air. Nira's mind raced as she tried to think of a way out. "We need to distract it," she whispered urgently to Cale. Cale nodded, his hands trembling slightly as he reached for a small device on his belt. It was a holographic projector, capable of creating illusions to confuse predators. He activated it quickly, casting an image of a larger, more threatening animal, a wolf with glowing eyes, into the clearing. The bear hesitated, growling louder as it turned its attention toward the illusion. "Now!" Nira shouted, grabbing Cal's arm. They bolted past the distracted bear, their footsteps crunching loudly over leaves and twigs. Behind them, the ants continued their relentless assault on anything unlucky enough to cross their path. For a brief moment, Cal glanced back at the chaos they had narrowly escaped. His heart pounded as he realized how easily things could have gone wrong. Meanwhile, Sarah Dawson crouched low behind a thick tree, her breath shallow as she watched the scene unfold. She had seen the strange light that seemed to scare off the bear, though she couldn't explain what it was or how it worked. Her instincts told her to run, but curiosity kept her rooted in place. Who were these people? And why did they carry such bizarre tools? As Cal and Nira disappeared into the dense forest, Sarah decided to follow them again. Something about their presence felt important, like she had stumbled onto something far bigger than herself. Still, fear gnawed at her. What if they noticed her trailing them? What if they weren't human at all? Back near Yellowstone National Park, Emily Ross returned to her team, holding the metallic object she had found earlier. Her teammates gathered around, inspecting it curiously. "What do you think it is?" one of them asked, turning it over in his hands. "I don't know," Emily admitted, frowning, "but it doesn't look like anything we've ever seen before." She snapped a few photos of the object and sent them to Ryan Carter, along with a detailed report of their findings. Within minutes, her phone buzzed with a response. Ryan wanted updates, fast. As night fell, Cal and Nira finally stopped to rest in a secluded grove. Their faces were streaked with dirt, and their clothes bore signs of wear from the day's adventures. Nira sat down heavily on a fallen log, wincing as pain shot through her leg where the snake had grazed her earlier. Cal noticed and knelt beside her, pulling out a small medical kit. "Let me take a look," he said gently. She hesitated but eventually relented, rolling up her pant leg to reveal the irritated skin beneath. Cal applied a soothing gel from the kit, his movements careful and precise. "You should have let me treat this sooner," he scolded lightly. "It's fine," Nira replied, though her voice lacked its usual sharpness. "We're here to study dangerous creatures, not play it safe." Cal smiled faintly. "True, but there's no point in studying them if we don't survive long enough to learn anything." Unbeknownst to them, Sarah had crept closer, hiding behind a cluster of bushes just a few feet away. She strained to hear their conversation, catching fragments of words like mission and samples. Her grip tightened on a flashlight she carried, unsure whether to confront them or stay hidden. Suddenly, a loud rustling sound broke the silence. All three of them froze, staring into the darkness beyond the trees. A pair of glowing eyes appeared, reflecting faint moonlight. Whatever it was large and getting closer. Sarah's pulse quickened as she realized she wasn't the only one watching Cal and Nira anymore. Without hesitation, Cal pulled out another gadget, a small orb that emitted a bright flash of light when activated. He threw it toward the source of the noise, temporarily blinding whatever lurked there. The creature let out a startled roar before retreating into the shadows. "We can't stay here," Nira said firmly, standing up despite her discomfort. "This area is too dangerous." Cal nodded in agreement, and together they hurried away, leaving Sarah alone once again. As she watched them disappear into the night, she felt a mix of relief and frustration. Whoever, or whatever, they were, they clearly didn't belong on Earth. But what did that mean for the rest of humanity? The tension in the clearing was thick, like the air before a storm. Emily stood her ground, though her knees felt weak and her heart pounded so loudly she was sure Cal and Nira could hear it. The two strangers stared at her, their expressions unreadable under the dim moonlight. For a moment, no one moved. "You shouldn't be here," Nira repeated, her voice calm but firm. She took another step forward, her hand resting on a device strapped to her belt. Emily noticed the subtle motion and raised her hands higher, showing she meant no harm. "Neither should you," Emily replied, her voice steadier now. What are you doing out here? And what is that thing? She nodded toward the hovering craft behind them, its metallic surface gleaming faintly. Kale glanced at Nira, unsure of how to respond. They had been trained to avoid contact with humans at all costs, but this situation left them little choice. "We're scientists," he said finally, his tone hesitant. "We're studying Earth's wildlife." Emily frowned, unconvinced. Scientists don't just show up in glowing ships in the middle of nowhere. "Who sent you?" Before either of them could answer, the hum of the ship grew louder, drawing everyone's attention. A beam of light shot down from the vessel, illuminating the clearing. Emily shielded her eyes, squinting against the brightness. When the light faded, 3 more figures stood beside Kale and Nira, dressed in similar outfits and carrying advanced-looking equipment. "Who are they?" Emily demanded, taking a step back. Her mind raced, trying to make sense of what she was seeing. These people, these asterisk things weren't human. Their movements were too precise, their features too alien despite their humanoid appearance. Nira stepped closer, her expression softening slightly. "You need to leave," she said quietly. "This doesn't concern you." "It does now," Emily shot back, her courage surprising even herself. "Whatever you're doing here, it's affecting my planet. I have a right to know." Kale sighed, glancing at the others. He knew they couldn't keep this secret forever, not with humans already noticing their presence. "We're explorers," he admitted reluctantly, "from another world. We came to study your planet's deadliest creatures, to learn about them, not hurt anyone." Emily blinked, struggling to process his words. Aliens. They were real. And they were standing right in front of her. "Why didn't you just ask permission?" she asked, her voice tinged with frustration. "We didn't think you'd understand," Nira interjected. "Your species is unpredictable." Emily wanted to argue, to demand more answers, but the sound of distant voices interrupted her thoughts. Flashlights flickered through the trees as members of her team called out her name. "Emily, where are you?" Panic flashed across Kel's face. "They can't see us," he whispered urgently to Nira. "Not yet." Without warning, one of the newcomers activated a device, creating a shimmering barrier around the group. The voices grew muffled, the light from the flashlights fading as if blocked by an invisible wall. Emily stared in disbelief, her mind reeling. "What did you do?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's a containment field," Nira explained. "It'll keep your friends from finding us. For now." Emily hesitated, torn between fear and curiosity. These aliens clearly had technology far beyond anything humanity possessed, yet they seemed cautious rather than hostile. "If you're not here to hurt us," she said slowly, "then why hide?" Kale exchanged a glance with Nira before answering. "Because we don't know how you'll react. Your kind has a history of fearing what you don't understand." His words struck a chord with Emily. She knew he was right. Humanity wasn't always quick to accept the unknown. But hiding the truth wasn't the answer either. "You can't stay hidden forever," she said firmly. "People are already talking about strange lights in the sky. It's only a matter of time before someone figures it out." The distant voices grew louder, closer. One of Emily's teammates broke through the tree line, shining a flashlight directly at the group. To his surprise, he saw nothing but empty forest. Confused, he turned and shouted back to the others. "She's not here." Inside the containment field, Emily watched as her colleague disappeared into the woods again. Her heart sank, knowing she couldn't reveal what she had seen. Not yet. Turning back to Kale and Nira, she crossed her arms. "I won't tell anyone. For now. But I want answers. All of them." Kale nodded, relief evident in his eyes. "Fair enough. But you must promise to keep this secret. If word gets out, it could cause panic." Emily hesitated, then nodded reluctantly. "Fine. But if you break your promise, if you hurt anyone, I'll find a way to stop you." Satisfied for the moment, Nira deactivated the containment field. The hum of the ship faded as it ascended back into the sky, leaving the clearing eerily quiet. As Emily turned to leave, she couldn't shake the feeling that her life, and the world itself, would never be the same. Back aboard their massive alien ship, Zorak paced the command center, his sharp features illuminated by the glow of holographic displays. The reports from Kale and Nira had troubled him deeply. Their progress was slower than expected, and now they had been discovered by a human. He clenched his fists, frustration simmering beneath his calm exterior. They've compromised the mission, Zorak muttered to himself, stopping in front of a large screen that displayed Earth's surface. His eyes narrowed as he studied the planet below, its blue oceans and sprawling continents appearing deceptively peaceful. Humans are unpredictable. They cannot be trusted. One of his officers approached cautiously, holding a datapad. "Sir, should we recall them? Or send reinforcements?" Zorak hesitated, weighing the options. Recalling Kale and Nira would mean abandoning valuable research, but leaving them on Earth risked further exposure. Finally, he made his decision. "Prepare a strike team," he ordered sharply. "Their mission is too important to fail. If Kale and Nira cannot complete it, we will extract them, and any specimens they've gathered, by force." The officer nodded and hurried away to carry out the order. Zorak turned back to the screen, his thoughts heavy with concern. This mission was supposed to be simple: observe, collect, and leave. But Earth's dangers were proving far greater than anticipated, not just from its creatures, but from its people as well. Meanwhile, Emily Ross returned to her campsite, her mind racing with everything she had seen. She sat alone by the fire, staring into the flames as her teammates joked and laughed nearby. None of them suspected anything unusual about her sudden reappearance or the strange emptiness of the clearing she had described. To them, it was just another dead end in their investigation. But Emily knew better. The memory of the hovering ship, the shimmering barrier, and the unsettling calmness of Kale and Nira haunted her. She pulled out her notebook and began jotting down details, careful not to include anything too revealing. For now, she would keep their secret, but only because she didn't know what else to do. Far away in the quiet town where Sarah Dawson lived, life seemed normal again. Yet Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that something extraordinary was happening just beyond her reach. She spent hours online, searching for news of strange sightings or unexplained phenomena. Most of the stories she found were vague or exaggerated, but one report caught her attention: a farmer near Yellowstone claiming to have seen glowing lights and hearing strange noises in the forest. Sarah's heart skipped a beat. It matched what she had witnessed days earlier. Without hesitation, she grabbed her jacket and keys, determined to investigate further. She didn't know why she felt so drawn to the mystery, but something inside her whispered that the answers were worth the risk. In the dense Montana wilderness, Kale and Nira worked quickly to gather more samples, aware that time was running out. They moved silently through the trees, avoiding open spaces where they might be spotted. As they collected data on venomous spiders and aggressive alligators, Nira grew increasingly uneasy. "We're being reckless," she said quietly, glancing over her shoulder. "If Zorak sends reinforcements, we'll have no choice but to leave." "I know," Kale replied, his voice tight with frustration. "But we can't stop now. Not when we're so close to understanding Earth's deadliest creatures." Their conversation was cut short by a low rumble in the distance. Both froze, their scanners lighting up with warnings. Moments later, 3 sleek ships descended from the sky, landing softly in a nearby clearing. A squad of armored aliens emerged, their weapons trained on Kale and Nira. "Orders from Zorak," one of them barked. "You're coming with us." Kale stepped forward, raising his hands in a gesture of peace. "Wait. We can explain. We're close to finishing our research." "There's no time," the leader of the strike team snapped. "Your presence has already been detected. We need to move. Now." As the strike team began securing the area, chaos erupted around them. Several containment units holding Earth's deadliest creatures malfunctioned, releasing venomous snakes, rabid bats, and swarms of killer bees into the surrounding forest. The animals scattered in all directions, drawn to movement and sound. Nira shouted a warning as a snake slithered toward one of the strike team members. The alien raised his weapon, firing a blast that missed the creature entirely. Panic spread as more animals emerged from the shadows, attacking indiscriminately. Kale and Nira exchanged a glance, realizing the situation was spiraling out of control. They had unleashed Earth's dangers, and now both humans and aliens would pay the price. Chaos erupted in the clearing as venomous snakes slithered across the ground. Bats swooped through the air, and swarms of bees buzzed angrily around the strike team. The alien soldiers scrambled to regain control, their weapons firing beams of light that missed their targets more often than not. Kale and Nira stood frozen for a moment, watching in horror as their carefully collected specimens turned into an uncontrollable nightmare. "We need to fix this," Nira shouted over the commotion, her voice sharp with urgency. She grabbed Cal's arm, pulling him toward the fallen containment units. "If these creatures spread, they'll devastate everything in their path." Cale nodded, his mind racing. He knew she was right. They couldn't let the animals escape deeper into the forest or worse, into nearby towns. Together, they rushed to seal the malfunctioning units, dodging snapping jaws and stinging insects as they worked. One of the strike team members fired wildly at a bat diving toward him, accidentally hitting a tree branch above their heads. It crashed down, narrowly missing Kale. "Stop shooting!" Kale yelled, ducking under another falling branch. "You're making it worse." The leader of the strike team ignored him, barking orders to his squad. "Secure the perimeter. Don't let anything leave this area." But the animals were too fast, too unpredictable. A rattlesnake lunged at one of the aliens, its fangs sinking into the soldier's armored leg. Though the armor protected him from serious injury, the shock caused him to stumble backward, tripping over a log and landing hard on the ground. Nearby, a swarm of bees surrounded another soldier, their stingers piercing tiny gaps in his suit. He swatted at them frantically, but it was no use. Emily Ross heard the commotion long before she saw it. She had been hiking toward the same part of the forest where she'd encountered Kale and Nira. Driven by curiosity and a need for answers, when she arrived at the edge of the clearing, what she saw left her breathless. Strange ships hovered silently above the trees, while figures in sleek outfits fought against a tide of Earth's deadliest creatures. Her instincts screamed at her to run, but instead, she stayed hidden, watching intently. Sarah Dawson wasn't far behind. She had followed reports of strange lights and noises, determined to uncover the truth. As she approached the clearing, she spotted Emily crouched behind a bush. Without thinking, Sarah hurried over, whispering urgently, "What's going on?" Emily jumped, startled by the sudden voice. She turned to see Sarah's wide eyes staring back at her. For a moment, neither spoke, both too stunned to form words. Finally, Emily whispered, "I don't know everything, but something big is happening here." Before Sarah could respond, a loud roar echoed through the clearing. A bear, a massive grizzly, burst into view, drawn by the noise and chaos. It charged straight at the strike team, its claws clashing through the air. The aliens scattered, firing their weapons in panic. One blast hit the bear squarely in the chest, sending it tumbling to the ground. But the attack only seemed to enrage it further. With a deafening growl, it rose again, shaking off the blow as if it were nothing. Kale and Nira finally managed to seal most of the containment units, but several creatures had already escaped into the forest. "We can't catch them all," Nira said desperately, looking around at the destruction they had caused. "We need to contain this somehow." Cal's gaze fell on his wrist device, which housed advanced technology capable of creating localized energy fields. An idea formed in his mind, though it came with a cost he wasn't ready to face. "There's one way," he said grimly, "but I'll have to stay behind to activate it." "No," Nira protested immediately, grabbing his arm. There has to be another way. There isn't, Kale replied firmly, his expression resolute. If we don't stop this now, it'll spread beyond control. You know that. Nira hesitated, tears welling up in her eyes. She wanted to argue, to find another solution, but deep down, she knew he was right. Reluctantly, she nodded. Be careful, she whispered, her voice trembling. As Kale activated the device, a low hum filled the air. The energy field expanded rapidly, enveloping the clearing in a shimmering dome of light. The escaped creatures froze mid-motion, trapped within the barrier. Outside the field, Emily and Sarah watched in awe as the chaos came to an abrupt halt. What just happened? Sarah asked, her voice barely audible. I don't know, Emily admitted, her eyes fixed on the glowing dome. But whatever it is, it's not over yet. The glowing energy field hummed softly, its light pulsating like a heartbeat as it contained the deadly creatures within. Kale stood at the center of the dome, his hand steady on the device that controlled the field. His face was pale but determined, knowing full well what his actions meant. The strike team, along with Nira, had retreated just outside the barrier, watching in stunned silence. Kale, Nira shouted, her voice breaking with desperation. She reached out toward him, though she knew she couldn't cross the shimmering wall. You don't have to do this. We can find another way. There isn't time, Kale replied firmly, his voice calm despite the weight of his decision. He glanced at her briefly, his expression softening for a moment. Tell Zorak, I did what I had to. Before Nira could respond, the field began to intensify, its glow growing brighter and hotter. The trapped animals writhed in confusion, their movements slowing as the energy disrupted their nervous systems. One by one, they collapsed, neutralized by the field's power. Kale closed his eyes, bracing himself as the heat grew unbearable. He whispered a final goodbye under his breath before the device emitted a blinding flash of light. When the light faded, the clearing was eerily quiet. The creatures were gone, reduced to harmless ash scattered across the ground. So was Kale. Only the faint hum of the now dormant energy field remained, a reminder of the sacrifice he had made. Nira fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. Her hands trembled as she clenched them into fists, anger and grief warring inside her. The strike team moved closer, their weapons lowered in respect for what Kale had done. Even they, who rarely showed emotion, seemed shaken by the loss. Outside the clearing, Emily and Sarah watched silently, their hearts heavy with shock and sadness. Though they barely knew Kale, his bravery left an indelible mark on them. Emily turned to Sarah, her voice trembling. He saved us all, didn't he? Sarah nodded slowly, unable to find words. She hugged herself tightly, feeling small and powerless in the face of such selflessness. Back aboard the alien ship, Zorak received news of the incident with a mixture of frustration and reluctant admiration. Kale acted honorably, he admitted quietly to his officers, his tone uncharacteristically subdued. But his death will not be in vain. We have learned much from this mission, and gained a new perspective on humanity. As the ship prepared to leave Earth's orbit, Nira stood alone in the observation deck, staring down at the blue planet below. Her thoughts were consumed by memories of Kal, their arguments, their discoveries, and ultimately, his sacrifice. She vowed to honor his memory by ensuring that humanity would never learn of their presence. Not yet, anyway. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Emily wrestled with her emotions. She wanted to tell someone about what she had seen, to share the truth about the aliens and the danger they had faced. But deep down, she knew it wasn't her secret to reveal. Instead, she focused on writing a detailed report for Ryan Carter, omitting anything that might expose Kale and Nira's existence. Ryan read the report carefully, his brow furrowed in thought. While parts of it raised questions, the lack of concrete evidence left him no choice but to classify the incident as unresolved. Still, something about Emily's account lingered in his mind, gnawing at him like an unanswered question. That night, Sarah sat on her porch, gazing up at the stars. She wondered if Kale and Nira were still out there somewhere, or if others like them were watching Earth from afar. Whatever the truth, one thing was certain. The universe was far bigger and far stranger than she had ever imagined. As the alien ship vanished into the vastness of space, Nira whispered a silent promise to herself and to Earth. "Guard it well," she murmured, echoing Cal's last words. And with that, the visitors departed, leaving behind only memories and mysteries. The alien ship drifted silently away from Earth, its sleek form disappearing into the endless expanse of space. Inside, Nira stood alone in the dimly lit corridor, her mind heavy with everything that had happened. Cal's sacrifice weighed on her like a stone, but she found solace in the knowledge that his actions had saved countless lives, both human and alien. She clutched a small data pad containing their research, vowing to ensure it would be used wisely. Zorak watched her from the command center, his sharp eyes softening for a rare moment. He understood the depth of her loss, even if he couldn't fully express it. "Kale was brave," he said quietly, breaking the silence. "His work will not be forgotten." Nira nodded, though she didn't trust herself to speak. Instead, she turned her gaze toward the observation window, where Earth hung like a fragile blue jewel against the blackness of space. For all its chaos and unpredictability, there was something beautiful about the planet, and something humbling. Humanity, flawed as it was, had shown flashes of courage and resilience. Perhaps one day, they would be ready to join the stars. Back on Earth, life slowly returned to normal, or as normal as it could be after such an extraordinary event. In Washington, D.C., Ryan Carter sat at his desk, staring at Emily Ross's report. Despite its lack of concrete evidence, something about the account felt undeniably real. He tapped his pen against the edge of the folder, debating whether to file it away or dig deeper. Ultimately, he chose the former, locking the document in a secure drawer marked classified. Whatever had happened near Yellowstone, it wasn't something the world needed to know yet. Emily, meanwhile, struggled to move past the experience. She went through the motions of her daily routine, but her thoughts often drifted back to the clearing, to the glowing energy field, and Cal's final moments. She kept the metallic fragment she'd found, tucking it safely in a drawer at home. It served as a reminder of how much she didn't understand, and how much more there was to learn. Sarah Dawson also found herself changed by the events. The quiet town she called home suddenly felt smaller, almost insignificant, compared to the vast mysteries of the universe. She spent hours reading about astronomy and biology, driven by a newfound curiosity about what lay beyond Earth's skies. On clear nights, she would sit outside with her dog, Max, gazing up at the stars and wondering if anyone, or anything, was looking back. In the forests of Montana, the ecosystem slowly began to heal. Animals returned to their natural patterns, unaware of the brief disruption caused by forces beyond their comprehension. The trampled grass and scorched earth faded over time, leaving little trace of the chaos that had unfolded. Nature, resilient as ever, carried on. As days turned into weeks, news of strange lights in the sky gradually faded from public attention. Social media posts and amateur videos were dismissed as hoaxes or misidentified phenomena. Life moved forward, oblivious to the truth hidden beneath the surface. Only a handful of people, Emily, Sarah, and a few others, knew the reality of what had transpired, and none of them spoke of it openly. One evening, as Nira reviewed the data collected during their mission, she came across a recording of Kel's voice. He was speaking excitedly about Earth's creatures, marveling at their complexity and adaptability. A faint smile crossed her face as she listened, remembering his boundless enthusiasm. Closing the file, she whispered softly, "Thank you." Far below, on Earth, Sarah noticed a cluster of stars twinkling brightly in the night sky. She pointed them out to Max, who wagged his tail lazily. "Do you think they're watching us?" she murmured, half joking. But deep down, She hoped someone, or something, was. In the end, the encounter left its mark on everyone involved. Humanity remained blissfully unaware of the visitors who had come and gone, while those who knew the truth carried it quietly within them. The aliens' departure wasn't an ending. It was a beginning, a reminder that the universe was vast, full of wonders and dangers alike. And somewhere out there, among the stars, Earth's story continued to unfold, waiting for the day when humanity would finally step onto the cosmic stage.